As I said to Cassie, I'm like, hey, come join us, boss. I feel weird that the camera is like that big. And now I have to lean back in order for everybody to actually see me.
Yeah, what can you do?
Are we live right now? Because I don't see anything going on like normal.
It
Yes,
says,
we are. Sorry about this. It's a little
says
awkward.
live for the last 47 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. What's up, everybody? Guys? Welcome to the NXT post show. You got the one and only Throwback here with your boy, the one, the tag team champion himself, Parrish. What's up, bud? How you doing? This feels so weird because I'm so used to like a bigger setup now right here with this. So I'm like trying to fit in a box and it's kind of weird.
There are so many inappropriate jokes I can make right now.
Yeah,
I'm just going to leave it at that.
You're the king of inappropriate jokes right now, as is anyway. So this I'm just gonna go out and say this. I called this. I've said this. I called it, and everybody said, "Nah, you're gonna keep it on Breaker. It's ridiculous." We'll go straight to the main event just because of the fact that it's fresh in our minds, and everybody is still in shock. Were you like me? Very few people would say Breaker has a high ceiling, which he does. I'll give him that.
He does, but his Monday Night Raw appearance to me showed me so many things that he has to work on still. But like you can just see the potential that he has, and I think that's very important. I think one look on Raw, I think Vince would already be like, okay, this guy's going to be up here post Mania.
I think with him, there's people now stating on Twitter saying that, oh, you know, he's going to take the belts off Roman, Roman ain't getting rid of those belts anytime soon. And the only person that I would ever take it off is all the way in Hollywood, and it ain't John Cena. Let's just leave it at that.
You know what? I even disagree with The Rock. And I say this too because they I think for the longest time wanted to do Drew McIntyre before him and Roman. And I know this is an NXT thing, but also at the same time, if they were to bring up Imperium and put them on SmackDown, Imperium versus the Bloodline would be very interesting. And I'd have all the time in the world if a guy like Gunther was the guy that took it off Roman Reigns.
It would be an interesting thing, too, because of the fact that the international aspect of it. You've got a Samoan family, a Samoan dynasty stating that, you know, they're the best of all wrestling. And then there's, I can't call him Gunther, I'm sorry, Walter, and him and Imperium are literally like, would be lights out.
That's why
I'm not. Yeah, well, it would be, with them, it would be lights out anyways to do so. So, I mean, it's going to be a good thing. The opening
but also
match,
after Mania, it's a unification title match, so he's going to go on Raw. Like if he's to beat Lesnar, I mean, you got to always say, okay, well, there's always Lesnar that could take it off him. There's always Rollins that could take it off him. There's Lashley. There's Big E. Like there are guys that are believable that can take it off Roman.
I mean, for me, I think Walter's the most.
What about Cody Rhodes if he's to go back?
If Cody comes back, yeah, but I think it would be interesting to see him do what Ziggler did at NXT and try to put his own spin on it. I think creatively it would be a smart idea for them to do that, but it is WWE. And look what happened. The match was really good, top to bottom. You know, everybody got their impacts in there. The spear was to Ziggler was just devastating inside out. When Breaker hits that, he's like a young Goldberg, which is high praise because of the body size, you know, the speed he has and everything.
Yeah, just the explosiveness that he has. You can really see that low explosiveness too that Breaker has.
Well, it's also a football background too.
Yep.
Both of them are football based. I can't get used to this box. Go ahead, make jokes.
You don't say in your dating life, right?
Yeah. No. But it's just, for me, it's more more fun to see a triple threat match that has more story to it and it's going towards stand and deliver. I mean, you're going to end up seeing Ciampa figure a way to get into this rematch some way, shape, or form. Plus, it's all the stuff's going to be played out, NXT stuff, on Raw. So it's a win-win situation for USA.
Well, I think too, like if you wanted to make this just an exclusive thing, you can have Dolph Ziggler now exclusive to NXT, and I don't think it's really missing on Raw because that was a very small segment that they had on Raw, to be honest, and that can be filled very easily by say another female segment or give it to the workhorses that are like guys like Finn Balor or Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Alpha Academy, who I think is the standout of Raw in the last month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, I think this adds a little bit more. I'm trying to find the right word, but it
more
just
bite to the sandwich, basically. More fill.
no. I think it gives NXT a little bit more. Okay, this like they had this change to the brand where it became the black and gold to the 2.0 to where it's like, okay, it's more of a developmental kind of a thing. But then now when you bring in the likes of Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler, it kind of gives you more of a, okay, I can kind of take this serious a little bit more. Like it gives it a little bit more strut, we'll say, when it walks into a room, just because guys like Ziggler and Bobby Roode just command that, okay, they are main roster talents. They're not just coming out of the PC. So the fact that they're sprinkling what they know on, you kind of take it a little bit more serious because we know that these talents are actually just ahead. And it's the same thing when you saw AJ Styles in an NXT ring. You just took Grayson Waller a little bit more serious because it's AJ Styles. So like the perception of AJ or Grayson Waller, becomes a little bit more serious. It becomes a little bit more. I take him a little bit more. Okay, this guy's got some.
You pay
Okay,
attention more
yeah,
to
like you get a little bit more eyes on him, and I think you're doing the same thing with Braun Breaker. I think Ciampa going on a Raw gives him that already, and I think that's going to be a mainstay. Now Braun Breaker has a true chance to shine, and he gets somebody like Dolph Ziggler, who I will say one of the best sellers in professional wrestling, to help him look that much better.
I mean, Ziggler all on his own literally is insane. This guy has held almost every single title in WWE. I don't think he's held the United States title, if I'm wrong. Then
No,
somebody
that was
correct
his
me in the
first
chat.
title when he was managed by Vicky. He was U.S. champion. He was world
Oh yeah,
heavyweight
that's right. I
champion.
forgot.
He's
Sorry about
never
that.
been WWE champion.
Do you count Goldie as that at this point, or
Nope,
is that the
that's
old
NXT.
standard?
No, that's what I mean. He's the world
The
heavyweight
big gold
champion.
belt.
That's like, to me, the world heavyweight champion and the WWE championship. It's the same as like the Universal WWE. They were just two different titles. So he was the world heavyweight champion, never the WWE champion. It's like saying John Cena is a 16-time WWE champion. I mean, it's wrong, but he's a 16-time champion because a lot of his reigns were world heavyweight champion too, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
a good chunk
it's
of it.
semantics, but like it is what it is.
I still think if you take those two main titles on the main roster, he's held pretty much every single title known to man on that. And it's good for him because of the fact that look how hard he's worked at all this. It's ridiculously like how good this guy is and how much he hasn't been used other than tag teams, and now this is for him to shine as a single run. This, like I was saying about the match, everybody got their finish, pretty much their finish. And that combination, the famouser into the zigzag, was awesome. Tommaso popped that and hit that on the right spot, and that hit the nose on the button for our 2 count. Breaker with the spine with the spear making Ziggler go inside out. Ziggler's selling his ass off completely top to bottom. And then, Rude comes out and intervenes. Fairy Tale Ending was used. everything pretty much everybody got a bits and pieces of it, and the story now is going to go towards Stand and Deliver in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
So
and I think too, like if you were to make this either a 4-way, which I wouldn't like, I think you give Breaker that one-on-one rematch with Ziggler. I think then you put Ciampa against Bobby Roode on Stand and Deliver, and right now you have two solid matches, like headlining that.
yeah, and I do too, but I also think that, and I'm the one going on a limb. I was one of the very few in the minority saying that Ziggler is going to win the NXT title, and everybody's like, no. But I this is like my Otis run when I said Otis is going to win the whole freaking Money in the Bank thing, but I'm not going to go grandstanding as much.
It was
I
stupid though how they played that out.
But for me, the way I'm seeing everything, if I had to look at how Stand Deliver is going to set up, you're right. It's going to be Rude and Ciampa, and then you're going to get Breaker, and you get Ziggler. But I think they're going to want to pay attention more so to that 6-man ladder match for the NXT North American Championship.
Yep.
But I honestly think that will probably be like almost near the top of the card when they set that up. I honestly believe, and this is my heart of hearts, that Vince and the gang at NXT are going to find a way to, because Ziggler's on the main roster, this is an NXT title. The last time we had an NXT title on a Mania card was Rhea Ripley and Charlotte.
Right.
With 2 nights on this card, and this is an NXT post show, by the way. We're just stating what could be in some.
Well, they've already announced Stand and Deliver will happen on the Saturday before night 1 of Mania.
I'm thinking that whoever comes out of Stand and Deliver, let's say Ziggler comes out of Stand and Deliver, that the NXT title will be on night 2 of WrestleMania. Not as like, oh my God, the grand card, but it's going to be probably one of those low end first or second, third kind of round matches where it's a possibility. I'm not going to say a prediction or a spoiler. I'm not Paul Heyman, but it's a possibility that WWE pulls that trigger and puts the NXT title, the same title Finn Balor held, stating in interviews that he would love to wrestle with the NXT title on WrestleMania, by the way. That if they do this, it will showcase Breaker. Let's say Ziggler comes out and it's Breaker through a DQ, and Ziggler comes out, doing a promo because how that rain delay happened. Like some way, shape, or form, they set this up, and Breaker gets his WrestleMania moment with the NXT Championship, winning it back. That would be a huge moment for him being young. You have one of the best performers in his generation, I think, at times with Ziggler, and putting him on a bigger stage than the NXT crowd, especially in Dallas. Night 2, the same night you're crowning you're basically getting rid of the brand split. You're basically getting rid of the brand split. And you're merging both titles into one. It basically will give a nod, and you could have it like Roman looking over his shoulder with Breaker in the shadows, kind of thing. A lot of people think that it's not going to happen. I honestly believe it is. After tonight, I definitely believe it's going to happen, because why wouldn't you have Ziggler have not the belt going into Stand and Deliver, and then WrestleMania is that night, and the next night you still have some matches you haven't filled out yet?
Well, I think too, there's a lot of talent on the main roster that you haven't picked a spot with. Like Seth Rollins right now still doesn't have a WrestleMania match, so you got to think about that. Alpha Academy, RK Bro, they don't have a WrestleMania match. Street Profits aren't in WrestleMania. The Usos don't have a WrestleMania match yet. So,
well, they do have a match. It's just they don't have an opponent.
Well, yeah, but like all these entities are going to be in WrestleMania in some way, so it's going to fill that out. I don't think you need to combine NXT with WrestleMania this year. Like, I really don't. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to try to overhaul this weekend or that weekend with all of this wrestling. Because if there's one thing that this world definitely needs is more content, right? But I have a feeling that Braun Breaker will be one of those Mania call-ups. And I have a feeling Carmelo Hayes is going to lose the North American Championship. And he's going to be the guy that becomes the new face of NXT coming out of that WrestleMania weekend. He's going to be the next guy primed for that next step.
Now you having me thinking because of the fact that the way they're shaping up his promo in the barbershop, since we were going to get to that a little bit at some point, that the way they played that out, saying, you know, he's beating Grimes, this, and this, and these people, and some of them are going to end up in that match. It's just interesting because he's like they're putting him in a position where they're hinting at, yeah, we might take the title off him, and if A, B, and C don't work in that main match, in that, you know, main event match that they have for Stand and Deliver, one of three. Well, to me, it's three. That ladder match has prime for like a show stealer right there.
Oh, I think anytime you have a ladder match, especially a multi-man ladder match, like you're just like, okay, that's my obvious choice for match of the night. I really think Braun Breaker versus Dolph Ziggler, if that is the match that is to happen, I think that match is going to be the best story told that night.
Because you brought up Rude and Ciampa as a possibility for Stand and Deliver.
Yeah.
I think that Rude's going to come into the glorious Robert Roode and bring it, but then do what like Edge does. He's going to mesh the songs into the beginning of that, into where he is now. His theme is now.
Well, it's just is kind of, it has the mixture of Ziggler and like, it's kind of what I think would be really cool to see is that in NXT they kind of run Dolph Ziggler as his own entity. They put Bobby Roode back to the glorious Bobby Roode in his entity, but they also have the ability to team up because they are established together. And it's almost like, you know, well, we know we got a tag team here, but we also know we got two very good like entities by themselves. So let's use that to help kind of solidify the show a little bit more. Let's help that to elevate these guys more, because I think that's the next logical step in NXT 2.0 is getting them more experienced workers to work with, so that if they were to jump up to the main roster, they don't look out of place. They look like they belong. And I think that's kind of one of the things that is very important, because I don't know about you, but I still see Ciampa with room to grow when he's on the main roster. He still doesn't look completely polished on the roster.
Wow.
And I say that because I think there's a different style when you're on Raw and SmackDown than is NXT. And I say that because there's a lot more TV, whether it's cameras, whether it's like pace, that I don't think Ciampa, like, he just looks like he's going
looks like he's having more fun though.
Yeah, but he does look like he's going over the speed limit on Raw. If you understand what I mean.
He's not going the pace he usually would go at NXT, which is just go, 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 go.
I think the NXT pace is faster than the main roster, and I think they kind of slowed down a little bit. You take a guy like Austin Theory, and he's really, really adapted to this new style. And he hasn't had to change a lot, but you can tell that when he needs to go, he goes, but he also slows it down a lot more. I don't think Ciampa is slowing it down yet. I think time will tell on with that, because I think he's good enough to do that. But right now, like, you can see that he's still not like that. He's not on that Raw pace that like you're used to, because Ricochet has definitely toned it down since he's been up.
So we're going to start some of the matches. We're going to go here and there. So we're going to basically mesh two of these matches together, because it is the women's semifinals of the Dusty's Cup.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to the end of the Wendy Chu, Dakota Kai, Raquel, and Kaden match? Because I I was one of the people that thought that Raquel and Kaden would end up in the finals against, Kylie Ray and Io, because that to me made sense. You want certain things to make sense. That for me made perfect sense. And now it's like, what are you gonna do? Now, don't get me wrong, I love Wendy Chu. The spot in the match where she basically had the announcers, and this is what they're doing and how they do it. She's going up and freaking getting ready for a tag, and just literally fell asleep, and they were whispering for like a couple of seconds. That was awesome by Barrett and crew. But it's interesting to see that they're pushing Wendy, and then they have Dakota helping out, which is great. But that spot with Toxic Attraction and taking Raquel's knee out and just forcing like her to work through that injury, so to speak, it could be real. I don't know, but it's just for me, that for me, and I thought of this when I was watching it. This for me was a coming out for Kaden.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the potential of, when you look at Stand and Deliver, you're gonna have probably maybe the finals of the tournament. Like, have they announced that the finals of this tournament is gonna be at Stand and Deliver or on an actual NXT?
I pray to God they could build this up for a couple of weeks. There's a lot of story you could do with this. I mean,
yeah.
You could.
Or are they going to do the winners of this get the women tag team?
The tag team. So it could be, you're looking at maybe a week or two for the Dusty Cup final, and then you have, the women's tag team match at Stand and Deliver.
Yeah, because I was thinking you could have gone two ways. You could have gone the finals at Stand and Deliver, and then also a separate tag team title match. And because of that, then if you did Toxic Attraction against Raquel Gonzalez and partner, then you have that, and then you also have the finals, and then you kind of have what you were talking about, but you kind of have it in a different way. But I also think too, like, NXT is going to need its content, and I think eventually you might get both on one of those, like just a regular show instead of Stand and Deliver, and then get the winners of the tournament facing Toxic Attraction. I think right now, and I think they're just doing a poor job of making those titles meaningful. And I honestly think they've done a bad job with this tournament, to be honest.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I thought they did a bad job with the men's tournament. I don't know.
Really? I thought they did a really good job with the men's tournament, and that match was really good with the Creed.
I think they put emphasis on the finals. I don't think they put a lot of emphasis on every other match. And it brings me to a bigger point is I don't think WWE does tournaments very well anymore.
I can agree with the women's one. It's because for me at least, when you had Io and Kaylee Ray, two top tier NXT champions. I'm still going to call the NXT UK, the title is an NXT title, but still two high-end caliber champions, past champions as a tag team, which is a crime having Io doing tag teams right now where she's so good on her own. I honestly believe that for this, when they put them together, it was kind of something like Thatcher. Like, people thought Thatcher and Ciampa should have been in the men's tag Dusty Cup one year, and that you were hinting at, oh, well, these guys are amazing, we're going to have them win the cup and then do this. The regression on this tournament has caused the women's tag team championships that Toxic Attraction have digress a bit, because that tag team is what keeps, if you keep them on TV wrestling, putting it in front of people's eyes and keeping it there, it makes more sense. You have women who are going after it, because as much as I hate to say this, those tag team titles in NXT and also the WWE Women's Tag Team titles are the mid card title for the women. When you look at AEW, and I know this is an NXT post show, they have the TBS title for the women.
Yeah, bitch show.
But I'm just saying that literally is a difference between the companies. I honestly think that something needs to be done. There's a lot more women coming up now.
I think too, like right there, you just said more women. I think that is exactly what NXT 2.0 and even the main roster need. They just need some more depth in those divisions to allow them to make these titles meaningful. Like one of the dumbest moves that were made is like, oh, we got women's tag titles. Let's get rid of the Iconics, one of the only true tag teams that we have in the women's side, instead of building these titles around something like somebody like them. Thing is with NXT 2.0, the nice thing about those women tag titles that the first ones is that they were contested on all brands. So now they're just gone on Raw and SmackDown and they're kind of forgotten about. Whereas this is a time where if you're not using it a lot on the Raw and SmackDown, you focus on your NXT UK. And I think that's something they got to start maybe thinking more about is maybe do they have some women on the NXT UK where you then incorporate these titles to that brand as well. So
Yeah.
then you have a set of women tag titles for NXT and for the main roster. I wouldn't be upset about that as long as they make them meaningful. And
It has to make sense.
This is why I think maybe when we saw like people like Sarah Logan come back at the Rumble, well, and then we look at Tegan Knox, who hasn't done or gone anywhere since they've been let go. I think once we see kind of everything get kind of go back to normal, we might see these talents back, and it might help strengthen this division. Because at some point, didn't you always want to see Dakota Kai and Tegan Knox go for a tag title?
Yeah. I always wanted to see them actually go for something that had meaning instead of fighting with each other.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you have a really good tag team right now in Toxic Attraction.
And I think they're becoming a little stale, don't you?
I think they're okay right now. I just think the problem is that they're not being utilized. Like tonight was the first time since they defended the titles they were interfered in a match, or they took part in some part of a match or anything like that. Or yeah, and that made people, who are those? I want to see them if they're the casual and this is the first time they're watching NXT. The problem with that is people like me who watch this weekly and know that, you're like, why don't you just use your champions and let them perform to the highest capability and stuff? They interfered in this match, and commentary basically stated that because they were a fear of Raquel Gonzalez. If they were in that final, it wouldn't have probably mattered because it would have came down to the lesser of two evils kind of idea. But it's WWE running the whole thing in the background. I'm happy how that we have more Wendy Chu going into the finals with Dakota. It's going to be a very interesting final match. I'll just leave it at that.
But doesn't she kind of remind you like when we saw Santino Marella become or go to the finals against Del Rio in that Royal Rumble, and you kind of had a feeling like they're not actually going to go with Santino. But then at the same time, you're just like, okay, Del Rio's the easy choice. That's exactly how I kind of look at Wendy Chu.
I agree with you.
In the sense I don't take her serious. But with WWE now, I can almost, especially with NXT 2.0, that's where I kind of can see them, pulling the trigger on it. And I'm like, I don't know if this is the right move.
I honestly am going to go on a limb. I think in about a year or two, I think Wendy Chu, if she plays this out and long term and stuff like that will be an NXT women's champion at some point. At some point, not anytime soon. The what she is doing now is like gold. Like, being on top of a locker or walking around and having a Slurpee and just, looking at Dakota and just acting, all casual and stuff. Some of all this stuff that she's doing, I don't know, you could probably tell me better, or our amazing producer, the franchise, could probably tell me that it seems like she's ad-libbing a lot more than just, they're, for her at least, letting her do what she wants a little bit more, being creative with this. I'm excited to see this because the other match to me in the Dusty Cup, which is Katie Catanzaro, Kaden Carter,
is what
yeah,
I think we always call it, like.
But
yeah. See,
Kaylee
I would have
Ray
loved. I would have
Io.
loved that semifinal to be the final of this tournament.
Yeah, but
because I think those two are a good tag team, like Catanzaro and Kaden Carter. Like, I think that is one of the better tag teams they have in NXT 2.0.
I think that they put them up. If it was against, if you put Raquel and Cade, I'm just gonna call her Cade right now. I'm tired.
Cora Jade.
Cora Jade. Yeah, it's been a long day. If you put Cora Jade in with Raquel against Io and Kaylee Ray, I think the outcome would have been the same as the Wendy and Dakota match with them. Mm-hmm. And that would have broadened the match you were talking about into full bloom, because you would have Wendy versus, the K Squares.
I just think KC Square is they're more believable underdogs that can actually get it done. Whereas I think Wendy Chu is just like oh my God, like, I can't believe they did that. But, like, not in a negative way, but in a more of a shocking way, kind of like, I don't know. Like, I always like to compare to Santino, because Santino's kind of that guy where it's like, because of the comedy effect that he has, it'd be like exactly like if R-Truth was to win something of meaningful other than a 24/7 title.
Well, he did at one point if you look at his career at WWE.
No, I know, but like now, when you just look at him and you're like, okay, well, I know he's good, but like, I just don't take him seriously based on what he's been doing. And there has to be like, and that's why, like, you're saying in a couple of years about Wendy Chu, I'm curious to see what her next move is to be like, to evolve, because I think it's going to be so drastically different than what she's doing now that I think people are really going to take notice of that. And I say that kind of in the same light of when Io Shirai turned heel and had that darker side. That is now the essence of the Io Shirai we now know. And I can't fathom the Io Shirai that came into WWE or NXT now, because that Io Shirai now is so much better than the one then.
This match was pretty much for me, other than the main event, which it was amazing. For me, it was like the second best match of the night. Just how crazy it was, how quick paced, impactful. That finish with freaking Kaylee Ray's finisher into the moonsault was interesting. I mean, there was different, combinations. That move that Kaden and Casey, and I think had Kaylee Ray on their shoulders, and I think it was Catanzaro literally on the rope, and having it gave me flashbacks of Brooklyn with Sasha and Bailey when they did something like that. It was like just a different way of doing it, but that was insane. I literally thought that the match was done like there.
Yeah.
It's just everybody got every great move in there. There's a couple of super kicks that there was a little, for me, it was great, but it was a little wearisome a little bit. You know, I nitpick certain things. It's how I always do.
You're
But
preaching the choir on
overall,
that, I think, and I can say this for a lot of people who went from being just a fan to a worker. You nitpick all the time now. It's hard for me to watch wrestling and not nitpick because that's all I'm doing because you look at things so much different. When
yeah, with different types of glasses too.
yeah,
Um, I I think that this literally, I would, if this match came back and they did it on Stand and Deliver, I would just sit there and watch it for hours. It was very masterful. Um,
well, it was a good story told, and that's the thing. Like a good story mixed with good athleticism and good like moves done in the right way. Like if you have a good story to a wrestling match, that's usually going to always bump it up more and more. And that's why like the two best stories of these matches of the show again was that tag match and then the main event.
yeah, and it some of the rest of the stuff was okay. They had some filler matches here and there, you know. It's just the I didn't pay attention to the match with Tiffany because, you know, it was just one of those matches that they put something in there for just to kill some time.
It's
You could
filler.
tell it it literally was just like a really short match, and they were like, "Oh my god, it's an upset." Well, okay. Um, the whole thing with the Creed brothers getting their freaking taken out and stuff. You knew that something funny was going to happen. We'll find out what happened with that, but Imperium says that Creed brothers weren't ready for them, and that they're just, you know, gonna take the night off, and then you have MSK walk into it, so that's gonna set up the triple threat match for the titles at Stand and Deliver.
I hope they make it a 4-way and add Legado del Fantasma.
That would be sick.
Like those guys, I honestly think you either need to pull the trigger with them or you got to do something or you got to move on from them because like they are a group that either has a load of potential or you're wasting it, right? Like it's
And no, you're right. You're perfectly right on that. It's just I I think that Imperium versus the Creeds would be like a killer match just on its own. I think that they would have just tore the house down, but MSK and Imperium have a history, and you knew something funky was going to happen. The match was really good, and then just the Creed brothers came out and just killed the momentum of the match for me. I was like, wow, this is going to be great, and then watching it and just sitting back and taking it in, and then all of a sudden, boom, the Creeds hit the ring, and then it was just like, you know, you threw it out as a DQ. It doesn't make sense if you're going to have your opponents that are the number one contenders for your titles out of the match and you're facing someone else. I would rather see you finish that match without any interruptions and see who out of the rest of them can be great. That's me. I mean, everybody's different though.
I'm also gonna add this because I think people need to like see it this way too. I think this also shows you the importance of bringing in a Ziggler and Bobby Roode because we know how they are as a tag team and how they can change styles depending on their opponents, make your opponents look good. They are a different kind of professionals when it comes to this craft. We're looking at Imperium, and I've noticed Imperium, they like to go kind of with everyone, despite maybe the limitations that the other team has. Because they did it with Breezango, who I thought was a very underappreciative team in NXT when they were there. And because of that, like that was the only time I saw Imperium kind of change their style a little bit. And because of that, it just worked. And I think Imperium, they're just workhorses. But with that being said, they're not the best character driven tandem in NXT.
Yeah, that's true, but
And that
they're based off of like the belief about the map being sacred and stuff.
yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
old school philosophy of wrestling.
But I think like they don't know how to elevate the talents of the Creed brothers as well as maybe a Ziggler and Rude could. And that is why those two guys are so essential right now, because that's why you need those experienced wrestlers in NXT 2.0 right now, because there are, like, you got to let your Imperiums, your grizzled young veterans kind of be the standouts and the like your benchmark of what the division is without like altering kind of that with them. And then you can add the MSKs in there as well. But then if you want these other teams to develop, you got to put the right pieces in play. And that's why I think it's so important that you have your AJ Styles come down, work with the Grayson Waller. So maybe he's a little bit more believable to take that North American title now. And you kind of go from like, okay, this guy's kind of a quack to being, he's a quack, but you don't want to completely count him out. And I think that helped him out a lot. Whereas now, if you were to put, and I'll kind of want to say, like, if you were to put, maybe bring the Usos for like 1 or 2 shows, or even Alpha Academy, just to work with the Creed brothers for a couple shows or matches, they make the Creed brothers look so much better.
I think that with Ziggler and Rude, since you touched on that, I honestly think that them being in NXT, like you said, is a great thing. Once they decide to take the belt off of Ziggler at some point, you can keep Ziggler and Rude back down there and let them run Rickshaw and have them face Imperium at some point if Imperium still has the titles. And then you just have them go from there and bring Imperium up, because that's something that WWE has to consider. If they're going to change Walter's name, and bring up all 3 members at some point, you might as well look at it right after Mania as a possibility that all 3 of them get called up. If
I'll throw one more team that very well could go,
lose.
That could actually and it makes sense despite the, like, just kind of given the fact that they don't have much of a direction right now. I wouldn't hate Street Profits going back down for a month or 2 just to help out.
Wow. I was thinking along the lines of the War Raiders and just literally the Viking experience.
But they do have a potential thing with the Usos right now.
Yeah, they do. But I'm saying if it dies down eventually.
But I think the Street Profits make a lot of sense with how the portrayal of NXT 2.0 are. Whereas I find the Viking Raiders are out of place, like very much so. And then that's kind of another thing. I find Imperium is very out of place in this spray painted, all this color and like all this graffiti, like, like just the perception of NXT 2.0. And then you look at what Imperium is, they really do look a little out of place in NXT 2.0.
They're more suited at a different pace, a different style. So it's very weird at times, because you look at Imperium, like you said, they want to go, 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 go. Sorry, I gotta shut something. But they feel like they're like a big fish in a small pond kind of idea. Like they belong, but they kind of don't. I think they're so used. I think they're so used to the UK, the NXT UK style of way things were done, and now it's the 2.0, the original NXT tag titles with the 2.0 spin on it, and they're so used to being go 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 in a certain pace that eventually, they're trying to pull back. I mean, a good example. Walter pulling some of his chops, but with the whole match with Dragunov, he wasn't pulling anything at all. It's interesting to see.
I'll give you kind of like an idea. Like, I think the Creed brothers are looking at going from A to B, whereas I think Imperium are looking at going to C to D.
They're looking more up to get up there, so like to get either on SmackDown or something like that.
But like they're just at a different progression right now. Like they're looking at like, okay, we're going to a level up before this. Like we need to get to that level. Whereas the Creed brothers, I find, are looking to belong to the level that they're currently at right now.
Agree. And I think it's going to get better with them. I think the long-term progression in WWE for tag team, as much as Vince doesn't like them, I think with the way you have Imperium, the Creeds, MSK, you're going to have Ziggler and Rude down there. Um, the amount of you have, the team that looks like they're Brooks and Dunn or something like that. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. I gotta write names down and stuff. I'm bad with names. I've always been.
I'll even throw one more tag team out there that could actually do a lot, and I think it would give a lot of eyes to NXT 2.0. But we mentioned NXT or MSK, sorry. They did a thing with Riddle and like, okay, this kind of was a little cool because there's that interaction with the main roster. What if we saw like MSK or Imperium go up against RK Bro?
Yeah.
And you had Randy Orton helping out some of these guys.
No, that would make sense. But I'm saying, like, in this current tag team generation that they have in NXT, the candle for NXT for tag team wrestling is bright. You had the you had a bunch of really good tag team wrestlers in this tournament. The Grizzly Young Veterans were in it and stuff like that. And now to see these guys not being used as much, but the bulk of the talent that they have, if they move some up to the main roster, it gives credence to the tag titles because there's actually legit tag teams on these. Yeah. And so seeing this triple threat, I hate to say this, but I think they turned, and a lot of people wanted this, they turned MSK heel in order to make the Creeds look better. And they'll reveal that it's MSK that did the dirty work to take them out, which makes certain people happy. I mean, like the franchise says, there is gang warfare going on in NXT right now. It's going to be fun to see how they do it, and I would love to see like a wrench in this match, like some stipulation or something crazy that makes it more interesting, like Malcolm Bivens on a freaking pole or Walter not allowed being near the ring or something like that. I don't know. It is, these matches are now setting up for Stand and Deliver are going to be very interesting, which it's going to be a 12 o'clock match on night one of WrestleMania.
Well, 12 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah, well,
which means it's 10 o'clock for this guy.
Maybe Parrish can get a Dunkin' Donuts run. Anyways,
we don't have Dunkin' Donuts where I live. We have Tim Hortons.
I should send you some Dunks.
I mean, I've had them. I've been to the States. I eat all your junk food.
Yeah, you eat junk food.
You guys kill us in the junk food department. Like, there is one of the nice things about, like, I'm a huge cereal guy. And when I go, like, if I was in the States and it's like, okay, I go to like a Walgreens. Yeah, I know Walgreens. Or like any place like that. And then I go to the cereal aisle and I'm like, okay. It's like aisle of like different cereals. And you're like, oh, okay. You have Shreddies, but you have Shreddies in like 30 different flavors, whereas we have maybe it in like the normal boring flavor, and then maybe we got like one nice one, and then it's like, okay, you guys just take it to a completely different ballgame because, well, let's face it, that's the United States of America.
I'm not looking forward to it. I just found out that my car that my girlfriend's been driving just filled up almost over $40 for the first time ever since I've owned that car.
Oh yeah, gas up here is insanely dumb too.
And pretty much so. That's been what NXT is. It's just one insane thing after another recently. Who do you? I'm gonna get your picks for the Dusty Cup because I don't know when you're be on, because it's always a pleasure to have Parrish on every time he comes on here. It's always been fun. Who do you think wins the Dusty Cup if you had to pick your pick?
If I was going to make a pick based on the fact that WWE likes. I mean, and here's the thing: you had an actual established tag team, and they don't make it, but you have two put together tag teams, and they're in the final. That's WWE tag team division in a nutshell, right? I think you give it to Io and Kaylee Ray. I do, because I think the star power that they have going up against Toxic Attraction just makes more sense. I think you can then develop the Wendy Chu, Dakota Kai, I think in a little bit more light too. Like, I don't think they necessarily need a championship to develop what they have going on. Whereas I think with Kaylee Ray and with Io Shirai, they're looking for a championship right then. And I think with their current storylines with Toxic Attraction, it just makes a lot of sense. And then I have a feeling that we're going to see Raquel join them, and then we could have like a 6-woman thing with both titles on the line. Like, do you remember the tag match back in the day? And I think it was Owen and the Bulldog, and I think Owen wasn't available, so they had Yokozuna in the tag match, but against Michaels and Diesel, and they had the tag team titles, the Intercontinental title, and the heavyweight championship all on the line. I would love to see a match where they have both the female tag titles and the women's title both on the line. So if Mandy got pinned, she lost her title. But if one of the others was to get pinned, then the tag titles are lost. And I think that'd be a cool dynamic to have.
I mean, for me, that's an interesting concept, and obviously they won't pull that. I mean, I'm excited to see, Kaylee Ray and Io. I'm also interested to see more stuff from Nikita Lyons after her going viral with the way her debut went. But I want to see like how much that's going to progress. I know, a lot of people are excited about it, about what she's got coming down the pike. I am too. It seems like she's got the ability to carry, probably right after Raquel, is probably be the number one person to carry that belt eventually. So they did have a segment with her with Lash Legend, and that was just like, kind of short thing. It was for me, I thought it was just interesting to see the interaction between the two. So other than that, that's pretty much NXT.
Who do you have winning the tournament?
I would honestly, my head's already saying, and I've said this before, and it's been on record on camera, that it's going to be Io and Kaylee Ray. But I would have loved to see, KC Square win finally and actually get that shot again. I think it's well overdue. I think if they keep them next year, and the women's tag division's not as great as it can be right now,
they could be the team around the SummerSlam time frame to be the team that then takes the titles.
Yeah,
I think this all depends on if you really want to take the titles off Toxic Attraction right now or not.
It's all dependable, because it all depends on what they're going to do with Mandy for the most part. But that's kind of sad, because that all three of them together work really well, and it's interesting to see.
I am going to say this. The one interesting thing I do notice is when I watch that group, there are times I wonder if somebody like Gigi Dolan is better suited to be the leader than Mandy Rose.
I think she is kind of reminds me of a hybrid Paige and Becky Lynch kind of thing, where it's like she's ready to just knock out, drag out, fight, and ready to go. And that's really interesting too.
It just has a dynamic of remember when Rock was in the Nation, and okay, he's just becoming more of his own, and then eventually he takes over from Farouk with the Nation. I'm just what if we were seeing the same thing with Gigi Dolan, and then she then kicks Mandy Rose out, replaces her with somebody else?
It could be. It could be like DX originally too, when Shawn lost his smile, quote unquote.
Well, he didn't lose his smile, and that's when DX went. He just lost the title, and then went because his back was messed up.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's NXT pretty much in a nutshell. It's was a really good show. I was very, very pleased with how Roadblock ended. Um, being selfish and all. Um, I honestly think that they're now pivoting towards stand and deliver and figuring out. They announced a few matches and stuff like that, like Persia versus, uh, it's just why are you gonna
We didn't
fight?
talk
Fight
about the last man standing match though.
That is true. That's when that match was really good. Sorry about this. My brain's scattered brain right now. It's interesting because how they played every inch of this match out. Everybody got a bit of it. So I mean, with Waller, I didn't get to see the outcome of it because of I was watching on my phone and my phone died. So I'm sorry for not giving in. That's probably why it slipped my mind. I was watching the most of it, but the handcuffs that Knight put on his bodyguard was interesting. The trash can hits and everything. The match went pretty much back and forth. Knight held his own for the majority of the match, as I remember. It for me, I'm excited that this is the ending point and this everything's going to move forward. I really do believe Waller is going to be in that ladder match. It's in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, and he's also had interactions with Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, um, as well as, Cameron Grimes, who I think is going to be the guy that walks out of stand and deliver the new North American champion. I think that'd be a crime if he's not the guy.
And you got Tony D'Angelo talking about how he wants bigger fishes.
Although you know who my secret, like, I would love to see if they gave him this title just to see, like, kind of, because I think this guy is, I mean, Carmelo Hayes I think is the next guy, that the natural, like, progression from this new school of a talent pool other than Braun Breaker to be the next guy. I'm very, very much sold with Joe Gacy.
Mm-hmm. I that whole thing that he has with Harlan, it's so intriguing because it's kind of like the serial killer is ready to let go, but the guy who's holding him back is kind of thing. That is the most interesting thing that I've seen in a little bit. It's a little different take if you had to look
It's
at the
kind of
Wyatt.
like a Jekyll and Hyde scenario
Yeah.
meets with, like, the old school Bray Wyatt, and, like, when Bray Wyatt has the monster that he holds back, like, kind of like, remember when he's always holding back Luke Harper or Rowan or even Strowman? I'd be like, not now. And he's kind of like the puppeteer. That's how I feel Joe Gacy is. Like, I would love to see that old school Bray Wyatt with the current Joe Gacy.
I think that they're searching for either a third or two more. So, I mean, Gacy is gold, and he holds his own all the time. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Like, if there's like a Gacy like family or something like that, like, I think that is so intriguing that this is like, we out of all this new talent pool that the NXT 2.0 has produced, we haven't seen a real true stable on the men's side. We've seen people come together, but we haven't seen that real group.
The only real group we've seen on the 2.0 side is Toxic Attraction, and that's still like a work in progress also.
And that's not a purebred NXT 2.0 group when you kind of think about it, right? Like, so, and that's kind of where I'm kind of at. Like, I think this is the new progression now with like NXT 2.0. You're looking at kind of how these main guys, and I think it was very clear right away that, and we talked, like, there was those talk, like, back in the brand split, there was a SmackDown 6, but I think you can have the 2.0 6. And that is Braun Breaker. That is Carmelo Hayes. I think that's Joe Gacy. There's Grayson Waller for sure. And I think LA Knight. Yeah, Von Wagner. But I think like a guy like LA Knight is primed to be in there as well. But then you also, like, I don't know about you, but that Ennis and Ophi guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a guy I think you want to watch on.
I think I think what they're doing Von Wagner is interesting because they have Robert Stone is trying to help him along and stuff. And then you have Duke Hudson and a plethora of talent that they've got.
Ivy Nile is another standout that I think people need to just be okay. She's going to be a future. I think she's the perfect person to take the title off Mandy Rose.
I think the perfect person to take off the Rose off of Mandy Rose is basically still out and about right now because it's very hard to decipher. I mean, for me, it would be Wendy Chu, but that's long time away from right now.
I'll give you one name that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, but I think obviously now with her link to, being with Gunther then of Walter, I think Ginny will eventually come to NXT 2.0, be the first woman in Imperium. Think about it this way: if Gunther champion, Imperium tag champs, Ginny women's champ.
Yeah, that would be pretty sick. It'd be something different.
Yeah. And that's your benchmark of 2.0. I think that'd be really cool, especially if you then had Gacy, Harlan, maybe bring in a female, bring in interesting dynamic. So, or you have somebody like Trick Williams, you have Carmelo Hayes, maybe that Inofi tag team, maybe they pair up.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna wrap it up, but I did tweet this out that I have something to say about. I watched the podcast for the Roundtable podcast on my way to work, meaning I listened to it.
Yeah,
and the producer we have, the franchise, put out a challenge for WrestleMania and stuff with Chemical Julian and Shane Husky, which all three guys are really great guys, and I appreciate everything they do, and I've appreciated Body Slam for actually letting me be a part of all this. So I heard about the challenge. I'm upset. I have a title belt, a community title belt, that is going to be defended at WrestleMania and won at WrestleMania. So why not we do something fun? Why not we have Body Slam do a live stream? I'll see what I can get the crew to do. Maybe do something if I can get out of work for one of those nights early. And let's have some fun. But I'm putting this in now. The winner of WrestleMania, right? For the Roundtable Podcast title. Don't care if it's Shane. Don't care if it's Julian. I don't care if it's my buddy BB. I don't care if it's Santa Claus. I don't care if it's the Easter Bunny, because Wicked Crazy Pinfalls is going to get that title. And literally, I'm going to say this right now. I declare war on the Roundtable Podcast for that title. I will get that title. I want that title.
I'll say this. WCP, I mean, you might think it stands for Wicked Crazy Pinfalls. I just say it's winner Chris Parrish.
I've seen people do hashtags about this stuff. I have, and I'm going to say this much. Shane, BB, Julian, come on Thursday. See what I have to say about that huge announcement. All right, guys. We're going to be wrapping it up for NXT tonight. I want to thank the Parrish.
You want to hear something funny, though?
Yeah.
So, when I was in Love Wrestling, there was a beef about, who does AEW, right? I was not known as an AEW guy. I went 12 for 12 on predicting Revolution.
Damn.
Not bad for a guy who wasn't considered an AEW guy, eh?
Let's just say this much. This announcement for the Wicked Crazy Pinfall Championship is going to rock because the tournament has disbanded, but the title's still there. This announcement is going to rock the whole tournament bracket to its core. I know the tournament's technically still on, but technically not because I haven't been setting stuff up. But watch what I got planned. It's going to be amazing. All right, so producer, we're gonna be getting out of here. I know you're probably busy and stuff, but thank you guys. Just have a good night. Do a good deed. Pay it forward. You know, hopefully he's there and he listens and he's with us. Baby, this is like dead air, man. It's like we're leaving hanging. We're like trying to tell him, hey, dude.
Well, I mean, like, if he's trying to see if we're uncomfortable, just understand, brother, that I'm also a pro wrestler and I know how to fill the dead air.
For
Dead
me,
time.
we could talk about
Dead-
anything else. It's just I know we have time and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're both big football fans, and that was a big day today too. So we can even fill in that one.
We could pivot off that and talk about this stuff. I don't know if Cassidy would be okay with this, but it's just going to be, you know, a fun thing to see what they do. Oh, here he is.
There we go. Say, there we go. Now
Loading.
I got a stick in between my face, but we're good.
Loading.
Yeah.
We're out.